Good afternoon. In this video, we're going to go over this week's options watch list. Before I get to the watch list, if you're not in the room, you can find the link in the description of the video and in my bio section of social media account. Also, please like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Put to call ratio right now is at, let's see, 0.53. It's pretty low. Definitely like to see that. And the economic calendar for the week, we have a busy week. Even though it's a short week, the market's closed tomorrow, which is Monday, July 3rd at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So it's a half a day. Then it's closed July 4th. So we technically only have 3.5 trading days this week. Even though it's a short trading week, we have a lot going on. We have ISM manufacturing PMI Monday morning at 10. Tuesday the 4th, we got nothing obviously because it's closed. We got OPEC this week. Wednesday the 5th, we have FOMC with no Powell, which means SPX will be cheap. You can get some at the money, really cheap, and probably get a nice 50-100% move on that. We haven't had much movement last FOMC, but I would imagine that with VIX being really low, put the call ratio being low, and bearish divergence going on in the daily on SPY, which I'll show in a few minutes. This is the recipe. You have a rug pull. This could be the trigger, or one of the economic data this week could be the trigger for a pullback. So definitely keep an eye on FOMC on Wednesday. That could be something worth looking at. And we always play. I definitely prefer the ones without Powell. They end up being the best ones because with Powell, you end up playing a 100-point spread, and they just don't really move that much. When there's no Powell, you can play at the money, and they go 100% very easily, even on small moves. So definitely prefer those kind of days. Thursday, the 6th, unemployment claims at 8:30, and we have ISM PMI services number at 10 a.m. and JOLTS job openings, which is a data that the Fed really looks at. So big day on Thursday. Then on Friday, we have non-farm employment change and the unemployment rate on Friday morning. So we have some pretty significant numbers coming out and things happening this week. That could play a big factor. VIX is low. SPY's got a bearish divergence. Put the call ratio is low. Everyone's on the call side. Everyone's stupid, where they just think everything's just going to get bought. That's when you end up seeing something end up happening. When you get all this greed and ignorance of SPY can only go up, and it's when you end up seeing something very major happening. There's a lot going on in the world that does not justify VIX being this low. Besides just ignorant thinking that the France riots, wars, really bad economic numbers, and even though that they say they're good, but they're technically not really good at all. Debt, I mean, I can just go on and on why there's so many reasons the market's just going against the grain right now. Eventually it will catch on, and we'll just end up seeing a massive dump. It's just a matter of when and what it will be. So we'll just keep that in mind. It could be earnings. Earnings season's coming up, especially Apple. We'll get to Apple soon, but Apple is just stupid. But we'll get to that in a second. Right now, I got VIX up. VIX is right around 1359. It's so low based on everything that's going on in the world. Every time it starts getting in like a little downturn, I think that you can draw probably a pretty good line right here. Right here. That's yeah, it depends on how you draw. You could draw it there. You could just draw right off the body of this candle right here. Yeah, they're all right around the 15 area, but I think that we're going to end up seeing some kind of a pop on VIX. I've been saying that for like couple weeks now, and I think I was saying it back here, and it just kept dropping here. I mean, to me, VIX should not even be under 14 or even 15, but it gets over 15, this thing is going to rocket really hard. I also like to point out we get the inverted head and shoulders on the daily. You get the left, you get the head and the right shoulder. The neckline's right around this 1450 area. You can even say maybe even 15, depending on how you look at it. And we could end up seeing this shoot up to 1820 real fast. And if you look at the weekly trend line, it's got room to 25 plus. So VIX is definitely got some room to run. Now, speaking of the SPY bearish divergence going on, SPY just keeps going and going and going. I mean, look right here. You get this high here, and it's kind of a little bit higher, tad bit, but the RSI is so much lower on this right here. Look at the hourly above 70. We could end up seeing this kind of a move right here. Hopefully we get a deeper drop than that, but yeah, but see, it's kind of thinking that we're going to end up getting this, which is what, only like a 440, $5 move. It looks like a lot. I mean, you get SPY that dropped $15 and VIX dropped with it. VIX was under 14. It's just kind of crazy how VIX barely moved on this drop. But to me, yeah, SPY can go up. I mean, like I said, 4th of July weekend, it's this weekend. Tomorrow could be a choppy day. It could be a very tight range day where they'll probably keep it elevated in green. Then after the 4th happens, you get FOMC, which to me I kind of find ironic that right after 4th of July we have FOMC, and that's when I think we're going to see something. We're going to see something this week. I'm almost certain we're going to see something this week. I could be wrong. I mean, I've been wrong a lot in the past about what's going on, but to me, I think that we're due to see some kind of a pullback, and I would watch it underneath 442 on a let's see, 441. We get a gap fill right here at the 440 area. We got gap fills down here at the 423 area. Got lots of gap fills, and this is a huge this 415 and 410 area. I mean, I wonder if we're going to come down here and test this at some point. I think that we will eventually, but who knows? We'll just have to see what happens. Take it day by day. I mean, we could only pull back. We could end up just doing this kind of a move. We just pull back down to the 430 area, then we just rage up to 460 and 480 back to all-time highs. But we got a lot of things going on. Earnings is coming around the corner, and speaking of earnings, we might as well bring up Apple. So yeah, I mean, we could see some gap fills right here. Now, if VIX is under 14, one of the things I do want to point out is that when VIX has been popping, gapping up in the morning, you do see that VIX likes to drop at open. So if VIX does gap up quite a bit, I may look at calls tomorrow. Just on the point of, you know, they like to make a nice strong green market on the around the 4th. Now after the 4th is a completely different story. That's when I think that things are going to change. So if VIX gaps up tomorrow, we'll probably end up looking at calls at the at open, but we'll have to see. That's why you need to be in the room. We'll have to see how VIX gaps up or whatever. So definitely think that we can fill some gaps on SPY this week. Now Apple is the one thing I'm really looking at. Apple is so bad. It just keeps going and going and going. They've lowered guidance. They lowered EPS. I mean, there's just no reason for it to even be up here. Me seeing Apple rage going into earnings, we're going to end up seeing something dumping. They're going to end up failing earnings or something like that, or not meeting expectations or something like that. It's way outside the Keltner channel on the weekly. But you know, Apple is so ridiculous that they might try to push it to 200 before earnings. Which is, they haven't even, I don't think they've listed earnings yet. It'll probably be mid to end July. So I wouldn't be surprised if they end up, we do pull back this week, that we end up seeing Apple push to 200. But to me, I think Apple needs to drop. I mean, look at the weekly. It's 70, it's 80 on the weekly, and right here, this looks like earnings. If I had to guess right here, this looks like an earnings move right here. And look where it was. It was right around the 80 RSI mark and went from 128 to 137, then it just dumped hardcore. So this, I think, is earnings. Anytime they have a huge RSI on the weekly, it ends up having a nice deep red candle So who knows? But look at that, 78. That's just ridiculous. 80 something on the hourly. I mean, I would look under Apple under 192 for a gap fill down to the 190s, and it's just gap fill right down here at the 175. You get the trend line right here down to 165. That's a pretty significant drop for Apple, but they didn't really test that. I mean, they pushed right through it and didn't really come back to test this trend line whatsoever. It just ripped right through it and didn't look back. So, I mean, we do need to kind of come back and retest it eventually, but who knows if they'll let Apple drop that much. BA kind of had a nice little recovery, even though this last week had a deep red candle. I mean, the week before I had a deep red candle. The last week I had a bounce right off the 20 EMA on the weekly, and it's just right back at that 211, 215 level, well, 213 level, and pull back a little bit. But you know, it likes to stay in this 215 to 200 level. Now that it bounced off this 20 EMA and it had a nice weekly, I mean, I would watch it right over this 213, 215, 220, 220 would be a big area in this candle, right around the 223, 224. It gets over 224, it's got room to run, but who knows if it will or not. We'll have to see what happens, but it could just stay in this range again. It could get to 215 and just or 220 and then just sell off and stay in the 200, 220 area. BA just doesn't want to get out of it. Eventually it will. It'll make a massive move. The question is which way. It's still in a huge bull flag. So if in a bull flag usually means it's going to go up, but not necessarily. It could be a huge trap. Maybe earnings will have something to do with that. I don't know. Microsoft. Right at this 341 area. It just does not like this area. It did rip through it, then it came quickly back down, then it bounced off, it rejected, it came back down, now tried to break through it again and rejected. Bearish divergence going on the weekly. You can see it's higher, making lower highs, and same then also like a head and shoulders going on here. You get the left, you get the head and the right shoulder. I would say that the neckline is, you could say the neckline is either 325 or even 328. Depends on how you look at it. 325 would probably be a better one. Whenever it breaks 325, it's got room down to 320, 315, 310, 300. 300 is right where the RCT trend line is. So we could end up seeing a dump to that. That's kind of crazy how much Microsoft has went. NVDA. Now that we're getting a little bit of weakness on here, we get a little bit of a head and shoulders, I guess. Get the left, get the head, possibly a right shoulder, possibly. Now, if it goes up here, gets over the 439 area, it's the head and shoulders is going to be void. It's going to be voided out. But I keep looking at this. It looks exactly like this. You get that massive exaggerated run, and they're trying to run a little more of it. It's stalling out a little bit, but it's going higher, but it's just not really. It's like gets a little higher and drops, gets a little higher and drops, gets a little higher and drops. Then it finally starts going down the other side. This same thing, gets high, drops, gets high, and is starting to drop. So VIX, NVIDIA is starting to show a little bit of weakness on the weekly. So I would definitely keep an eye on that. Way outside the Kellner channel on the weekly. It looks a lot like this, more so now. So I would watch it underneath the 405 area for push down to the 375 area, which is gap support. If it does break that, which I don't think it will on the first shot, would complete the head and shoulders, and then it could end up going sideways a little bit, then dumping and closing the gap. We'll have to see if the market's really, really weak, or there's more news that NVIDIA could end up suffering from that. Speaking about ER coming up, Netflix loves to make a run for earnings run. And you know, to me, I would normally just thinking, okay, maybe it's time for it to pull back. But in Netflix is just one where even if SPY's dropping, it will just have a run. So we have this area right here, 480. I wouldn't be a bit surprised if we saw Netflix just take off, have like a earnings run up to the 480 level before end up dropping. I mean, that looks like a nice area right there to reject right around that 475, 480 level. But it would also have to break out and go against SPY if SPY is dropping. But we're assuming SPY is going to drop this week. But we'll have to see what happens, take it day by day. But I'd watch Netflix over 445, but push to 450. And if it gets over 450, it's got some area to run to 460, 465, 470, 475. Basically, every $5 on Netflix hard resistance will definitely be the 475, 480 area. And then that will probably be earnings. So I get some things to watch. So you get a lot of things going on. It's kind of hard to forecast what's going to happen. It's going to depend on the data that comes out. And one of the things that's really hate about with the morning data is that if it drops on data, it recovers by the time it V-rallies, by the time the market opens, or at open, it rallies. And if it pops, it sells off at open. So trading the data has just been very, very tricky lately. Just everything has been V-rallying. Even when you have really, really bad numbers or something bad happening, the market just has the mentality of a toddler and just forgets and just V-rallies on halfway through the day. So it's going to be an interesting week, and I hope to see you in the room. Thanks for watching.